Good evening. Well, I had a day off, but tomorrow I go back. Um, I just wanted to say that I had been doing a little research on what we are all dealing with, and since I have had the virus, and I'm reading articles that are pretty current stating that I will have only 2 to 3 months immunity, or as high as one article I read, 6 months. And since that is not what I was told or taught, it really bothered me. So I looked up using another search engine, uh, and found an article from Time Magazine, which I will put a link in the description box, from August 26th, I believe, definitely 2008, talking about antibodies. And they did a study from very reputable doctors at very reputable universities that you will recognize in the article. I might do a video on it, but I don't know. Just for those who want to listen and have the information. That back in 2008, well, the article is from 2008. It was right around that time, though, and they put this out that, and I mean, it made Time Magazine. Not everything makes Time Magazine. And this is prior to the pandemic, where everything has become political. Um, Back when they didn't have much to gain except, what they found. And they did a study on people who had been born prior to 1918, just prior to 1918, that were still alive. And, I'm sure drew their blood, and isolated the antibodies, because they did isolate and identify the coronavirus of the flu of 1918. So they could identify the antibodies in people, and they drew their blood. These people are like 90s probably at this point. Um, so, and they found that they had the antibodies 90 years later. Hello? That's what I was saying. If you have a virus, and there were 5 different markers, I don't know if I'm saying this properly, but there were 5 different, a virus mutates. The influenza of 1918 went through several mutations, so they found 5 different variations of antibodies that these people had 90 years later. Some of them multiple ones, I'm sure. You can look at the article, which I'll put in the description. But it's proof of what I learned. Now, they haven't identified this particular strand, so I don't know how they're identifying it in the test. No doubt I had something. But my suspicion is that what I had was a type of coronavirus that I had never had before. But whatever it had in common with previous coronaviruses that I have had, colds, flus, is what my body prevented me from experiencing again. But I had symptoms like not being able to smell at all that I had never experienced before in my life. My fever was fairly low, you know, and I was just kind of tired. But I mean, I still could have pushed through most of it and functioned. I've had a lot worse, so my body must have had some antibodies, and I'm still young enough, or, you know, to where my body is still functioning up to caliber, and I don't have comorbidities that would eradicate and eradicate my immune system. So that makes sense. That makes total sense. We just have another bad strand of coronavirus like we've had before. Except this one isn't mapped. Maybe that's it. I mean, I'm trying to be hopeful that somebody's telling the truth. That there's. Anyway, there's so many possibilities. I'm just throwing one out there. I spoke to my father today, the doctor, and I asked him about my antibodies, and I said, I'm reading articles. Again, like I already have said, 2 to 3 months of immunity and possibly up to 6. He said, no, you have them. I didn't mention the article about 2008 about the influenza, and he just popped up and said, no, you're immune to that for life. And I said, well, that's not what they're saying. And then I explained the article that I had found, which he said was accurate from 2008. He had never heard of that study, but he said he doesn't doubt it, and knowing him, he'll go look it up. He also gave me a good website that he goes to, and he's watched like 100 videos on this. Medical doctors collaborating. So, but, I would have access to the videos. So I'm going to go and look at those and see what he says, or what this doctor says, or I think it's a particular doctor. So I'll see what that is when I have some time. But no doubt about it, we're being lied to. I mean, I said that to him today. I said, we're being lied to. I said, this is very hard for me to function in this world. Oh, and we also discussed mass. I told him about an elderly lady that had come in to where I work, and there wasn't anybody in there at the time. And I said, and she was struggling to breathe, and she had beads of sweat on her forehead, and she's slightly hunched over, but I mean, you could just see she's so uncomfortable and alone. And there are 2 others with me, and they're much younger, but nobody else was in there. And I walked up to her and I said, ma'am, I said, I've had the virus, I have the antibodies, and you're having a really hard time breathing right now. And I want you to lower that mask, and I want you to breathe for me. And you can stay 6 feet away from those girls over there, but there's nobody else in here. And until somebody else comes in, I want you to breathe. And she just said, thank you. Thank you so much. She said, I just have to get out of the house. It's so sad. So sad. I mean, she's gonna, it's hurting her. And you said on those videos, they talk about that the only thing that even possibly does any good is a surgical mask, but that's only for what's coming out of you, not, it doesn't protect you from what's coming in. And they only last for so long before it becomes, you're only supposed to wear them for so long before then it does become a medical problem. So you have to switch them out constantly. But it's really, they're useless, okay? They're pretty useless. And I just, it's just hard to function. When you know the truth, you know the scientific principles, you know common sense, and you know what your body tells you when you're wearing something that's totally unnatural for hour upon hour, that it's wrong, then it's wrong. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And what I've seen on television since March, if it didn't directly affect us and our lives and destroy people's lives, and they're causing depression and isolation and financial hardships and breaking up families and um, shoving families together that would like to stay further apart because of issues, and um, having the elderly die in total isolation away from their loved ones, um, and keeping people apart and not being able to communicate or hear each other properly. Um, so you just stop trying because it's just, you know, pointless. They're doing a damn good job. Damn good job. A damn good job. I read 1984 in seventh grade. I read it again because I wanted to teach it because I thought it was really important. But the older generation, it just would not hold their interest at all. At all. It is the only book I ever started and stopped, and I absolutely regret it. Now, I did go to Animal Farm because I think it was something that they could handle. But the idea that I could read it in seventh grade and it left a mark on me, and I couldn't get them to seriously take it seriously in high school is somewhat alarming. But hey, um, it is what it is. But I mean, I got some of the print. Some of this, there are, some similarities about 1984 and Animal Farm. So about, what appears to be a great socialist situation and ends up being a communist nightmare or dystopian nightmare. But yeah, they have that in common, which is what we're witnessing. And I can only hope and pray there's enough of a good faction of people that somehow, some way, maybe by divine intervention through people, or maybe the ultimate divine intervention, I don't know, that this will be stopped. Um, because, you know, it has an awful lot of similarities to things that you read in history, memoirs in history about, you know, the Nazi takeover or, what was it, the Bolshevik Revolution, um, you know, certain aspects of apartheid, um, you know, where any people are oppressed and for, you know, not, they aren't judged for the content of their character. They're judged for a belief that they have. They're judged for the color of their skin, the color of their eyes, their, you know, uh, what else was their lifestyle, their sexual preference, which back in the day you would just call your lifestyle, that, you know, didn't adhere to whatever the social, you know, whatever they deemed was okay or the new normal at the time. And so those, that particular group, the big group, whoever that may be, and then all the other peripheral people who did not fit into society were, you know, eradicated, gotten rid of, ruined, had to flee, you know, murdered. And I've heard many people talk about who witnessed the change of China into the strict communist state it is today, and who people who witnessed Venezuela and what has happened to them. I mean, they were there. They grew up, or they, in the case of China, they were living there at that time, or they lived in China for over 25 years in their perspective, and they were living there during that time. And I've listened to all these different perspectives, and they're saying, you know, that they're worried because it's the initial signs of what ended up happening to them. So, wasn't on some main network. Um, didn't seem they had anything to gain. Some countries and or some sections of some countries are worse than what we are here right now. We're not doing great as far as freedom, but some are worse. And I mean, uh, makes me think that somebody's got to be standing somewhere, or maybe they're holding off on us a little bit more because we have the ability to defend ourselves. Maybe maybe they're taking it slower with us. I don't know. Except in the, you know, bluer areas, which I'm living in one right now, and we do have a little bit heavier restrictions than a lot of the part of the country, but we're not quite as bad off as California and New York. Um, but yeah, we're one of the supposed hot spots type things, except, you know, the numbers don't quite add up, and we all know the numbers are garbage anyway. So, just like any other virus, you need to be cautious. And those of you, you know why you need to be cautious. And the others of you, you just might get a bug for a while. And maybe you won't get it at all, like my daughter. They never mention those people. So it's just not even asymptomatic. There's another category. They just don't get it at all. Anyway, you never see that on the news. So look at the link, read the article if you want to see what I saw about the antibodies they found 90 years later in people from the Spanish flu, or the influenza of 1918. Same thing. You can look in the article and see. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't get sick again if this virus, like flu viruses, all coronaviruses mutate. And usually a strand that starts off mutates into less. But let's say it mutates into something and parts of it I don't have the antibodies for. Well, I could catch that part of the virus. My body could show symptoms for that, say, 20% that my body can't fight off, in theory. So, yeah, I could get sick again, but it wouldn't be the exact same thing, and it should be less, in theory. So, but, I mean, I don't see how they can say we only have the antibodies for 2 to 3 months. When if you're testing for nearly all coronaviruses because you haven't isolated one in particular, this one, then, I mean, that would make sense why we're getting all these false positives, because it's picking up other coronaviruses and the false positives. But anyway, I don't know. I know I had something, and it was a coronavirus, I'm sure. And it was a little different than anything I've had before, but it was pretty mild considering. So, anyway, that's what I know for now. And I hope all of you are doing well. And I really need to go to bed. I'm just horrible. I'm such a night owl. Um, say your prayers. And because of the inconsistencies in the world right now that are so blatantly in front of us, and the elections coming all too fast, please prepare. Just have extra. Have extra. Stock up on everything. And, check on those who are alone that you know of, who may need help or assistance or just some emotional support. And, say your prayers. And I will talk to y'all later. Bye for now.